So Nate Diaz will be making his long-awaited return to the UFC, and this time it will be in the lightweight division of 155 pounds, which is where I believe Nate Diaz does his best work, and we have the information right now that there is an opponent lined up in the lightweight division for Nate Diaz's comeback bout, and it is not going to be Tony Ferguson. However, that's what they would say if they were going to make Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz. That's just what they want us to think. So I could see through that, but I definitely don't think it's going to be Tony Ferguson, because they wouldn't just say that it's not going to be him. They would hint at it's being him, and if it was going to be him, why even bring him up anyway? Let people speculate. So I have a feeling it's not going to be Ferguson, which is weird, but I kind of understand it, because giving Tony Ferguson and Nate Diaz matchup would be the UFC doing something good for Tony Ferguson, which has never happened and will never happen in UFC history because they hate his guts for some bizarre reason. But still, in this video today, we're going to go through the lightweight division's rankings, going through every single name that's a free matchup right now for Nate Diaz, giving the pros and cons for each one, and then at the end of it, we're going to deduce who we think is the comeback bout at lightweight for Nate Diaz, starting at the top of the division, but obviously Tony Ferguson as well. It could be Tony Ferguson. I don't see it being Tony Ferguson. I'm going to leave that name out for now, but someone else who's came out and elected that it's not them that's taken on Nate Diaz in a comeback bout and seemed pretty genuine about it as well is Paul Felder. Recently came out, gave an interview and said, hey, I heard Nate Diaz is coming back. I just want to let you guys know it's not me. So I feel like it's going to be Paul Felder versus Tony Ferguson next in the lightweight division, which is a matchup that I wanted to see in the first place anyway, so I'm glad if that's secretly what they're trying to build. But we're going to go to the top of the division right now with a name of Justin Gaethje, which is something that the UFC could do, but I don't know if they would do, because it would completely disrespect the rankings of a division. But then again, it's Nate Diaz, so the UFC seems to make a few exceptions. They made a whole new belt because of him, so I think they can make a little bit of a jump up the rankings against Justin Gaethje. I think that would be a great matchup for Justin Gaethje. He would chew apart the legs of Nate Diaz. I think that is a terrible matchup for Nate Diaz, but I actually feel like Nate Diaz has a real good chance against some of these other lightweights down the rankings. Justin Gaethje just doesn't seem like the opponent they would do, because Charles Oliveira is sitting right there at number 3, and I think the matchup that needs to be made is Gaethje versus Oliveira versus the winner of Poirier versus McGregor. That's what needs to be done. The Gaethje Oliveira winner versus the winner of Poirier versus McGregor. Let's get those matchups made in the top 5. Then we'll figure out the rest of the division afterwards. But let's move down. There's other names in this division that are very good names. We know it's not Paul Felder. He came out and told us. However, again, maybe Paul Felder's playing a little bit of a sneaky role. Maybe it is Paul Felder and he knows that it is, but he seemed very genuine when he was asked if it was him, and he said that it wasn't him. He seemed like he was actually concerned and trying to figure out who the opponent was that Tony Ferguson was going to be taking on, or sorry, Nate Diaz was going to be taking on, because I think Paul Felder is taking on Tony Ferguson, and Felder actually thinks it's Gaethje. That would disrespect Oliveira. However, Charles Oliveira also came out a couple of days ago and said openly, I'm not taking on Justin Gaethje. I'm fighting for the winner of Poirier versus McGregor for the belt of the lightweight division after Khabib vacates it, because we still don't know what's going on with Khabib. Khabib needs to figure some shit out, because we've got a lightweight division and it's the best division in the UFC, and we need to sort this stuff out, and Khabib's kind of hogging onto the belt right now. I know McGregor did it for 2 years, but come on Khabib, don't go down the same route here. We need to figure out what's going on with Khabib. Oliveira has said that he won't be taking on Justin Gaethje. He wants the winner of McGregor-Poirier for the belt. I think the UFC could be trying to use a potential Nate Diaz comeback bout as a ploy, maybe, to urge Oliveira to jump at the opportunity of a Justin Gaethje bout, because if Oliveira thinks he's earned himself a title shot, like Oliveira throughout his career has been very, very delusional about whereabouts he ranks in a division and how much he can ask for, because it feels like every single time he wins, even if it's against Nick Lentz for the 3rd fucking time, he calls for a title shot. But still, I think they could maybe be trying to lure Oliveira to get the Gaethje fight by fabricating this instance that Nate Diaz is going to be coming in and taking on Justin Gaethje, so Oliveira might jump at the opportunity to get in front, because we haven't actually heard anything from Nate Diaz yet. However, they did just ban marijuana with USADA. They banned USADA being able to ban people for using marijuana, so maybe that's just to open up a gateway for Nate. Maybe that was like a condition of Nate Diaz's return. I wouldn't even put that past him, in all honesty. If I was Nate Diaz and I knew I had some power with the UFC, I'd make a move and try and get some rules changed under USADA about the marijuana situation, which makes no sense in the first place anyway. I can't even imagine if that's a negotiation between Nate Diaz and the UFC for his comeback bout. I wouldn't be surprised, but still, moving on down these rankings, rankings. I think it could be Gaethje, but we're going to move down. It's definitely not Poirier. It's definitely not McGregor, although McGregor has said that he's interested in giving Nate Diaz the title shot at 155 pounds. Shut the fuck up. I like the trilogy, and it's there if McGregor loses. It really is there if McGregor loses. The Nate Diaz trilogy is always going to be there as a perfect bounce-back fight for either Conor McGregor or Jorge Masvidal. If their fights don't work out in their respective divisions, Nate Diaz is always there for a bounce-back for each of them. But I don't think it's any of those names because they said they had an opponent lined up right now, and it can't be anyone matched up, that means. So I'm looking down the rankings and I'm finding some guys who haven't got matchups here. And other than Oliveira, Ferguson and Gaethje, I'm looking at names like Rafael dos Anjos, who has a win over Nate Diaz. I know Nate Diaz is a very competitive man. Dos Anjos has a win over him, and a dominant win as well. I think Nate Diaz might like his chances jumping in there against Rafael dos Anjos, just competitively to try and get a win back against him. I don't think the UFC would do Rafael dos Anjos versus Nate Diaz, but if Nate Diaz is looking to take on Justin Gaethje, I know the UFC would be interested in doing Charles Oliveira versus Rafael dos Anjos, two Brazilians against each other. That seems to be what they do quite often, try and eliminate the non-English speakers or the non-fluent in English speaking fighters. So I think if it's not Rafael dos Anjos, you move down again. I don't think it's Paul Felder because Felder's came out and said it isn't him, and I think he's taking on Ferguson next because they've both been pretty obviously excluded from this situation, so I think there's a matchup being made between the pair of them. That would be ideal, but Kevin Lee sits right below all of those names, and another name as well, in Iaquinta sits below those names. Both of those are potential matchups for Nate Diaz. I know Kevin Lee has recently got back into running, and his knee is now feeling better, and he sees holes in Nate Diaz's game as well. I just don't see them making a Kevin Lee bout with Nate Diaz. Kevin Lee's coming off a loss. It's a good matchup for Nate Diaz, though, so they could do it. Either one of those two names, I think, are the key names that not a lot of people are paying attention to in Iaquinta and Kevin Lee, because talk about Iaquinta, the BMF, the whole BMF promotion angle will be in full effect whenever Iaquinta is the guy on the other side of things. If Nate Diaz is the BMF looking to try and get his title back or whatever narrative they're going to try and paint to make it seem like this is a high-level fight. But still, Nate Diaz is good, of course, but you know what I'm saying. They're going to try and play up the theatrics of the whole BMF situation during this fight. And what better way than including Iaquinta, who stepped in against Khabib on a day's notice and also hasn't been in the cage for a very long time and also is a very winnable matchup for Nate Diaz in that lightweight division. I'm looking forward to it. I think it could be Kevin Lee, it could be Iaquinta, it could be Justin Gaethje, but I doubt they would disrespect the foundation of the sport that way. They would not do that, right, guys? And it would be a terrible matchup for Nate Diaz anyway. I don't see them tarnishing the legacy of the sport. They haven't done anything like this before. I don't see them just chucking Nate Diaz into the top of the rankings at number 1 against Justin Gaethje. Now, I know Ali Abdelaziz is the manager of Justin Gaethje, and Ali Abdelaziz gets his own fucking way whenever he wants to. So it's also very interesting. I don't want it to be Justin Gaethje, and I'm kind of in denial right now, but it could very well be Justin Gaethje. However, I think it's going to be Iaquinta, Kevin Lee, or one other name that is not in the rankings of the lightweight division that is still a potential matchup, and a rematch, by the way, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Donald Cerrone says he's moving back down to the lightweight division, despite saying just before his previous few bouts in the lightweight division, when Cerrone started getting slept at lightweight, he said, I'm never going back down there. I'm going to try and make a run at welterweight now. Tried against Nico Price, fought to a draw. And now he's saying, now I'm going back down. I'm going to try and make a run at lightweight. And he's got a big one coming up, and he's just started training camp. There's a high possibility that it could be a Nate Diaz versus Donald Cerrone rematch. Winnable fight for Nate Diaz. Rematch, both big names. Donald Cerrone's a bigger name than Kevin Lee and Iaquinta, I would say, put together. Plus, Donald Cerrone beat Iaquinta as well. So if you're Nate Diaz and you're looking in that division, if you get a win over Donald Cerrone, who isn't ranked right now, they could slide you above Iaquinta, because I have no idea why. Is Iaquinta even fighting right now? I think he is, and he wants to get back in there. But we'll see what goes on with him. I think it could be Iaquinta, Kevin Lee. There are so many good matchups, and I think it's going to be in the rankings. I think they might be just baiting. I'm going to look up right now on Nate Diaz's Twitter. Has he mentioned anything whatsoever about a potential comeback bout? Because I might be out of the loop here, but I'm just going to check if Nate Diaz has said anything at all. Because I have a sneaky suspicion that they are not even going to bring Nate Diaz back whatsoever. No, we aren't seeing anything from Nate Diaz so far on the situation They could just be lying. They could be in negotiations with Nate Diaz for a bout at 155, or just trying to negotiate with Nate Diaz, so they're technically not lying about trying to negotiate with Nate Diaz with a comeback bout, and they could just be using his name in a potential matchup with Justin Gaethje to force a stubborn and arrogant Charles Oliveira to jump at the opportunity for a Gaethje bout. But we'll see what goes down, man. This is a really intense one, and I think he could win a lot of bouts in the lightweight division coming up. And if he does win any of those bouts, definitely jump him straight up towards the top, because the lightweight division has got yet another big name, but we need to find out who the fuck is Khabib fighting or not fighting. We need to find out if he's fighting in general, because Khabib right now is just like, we have all this uncertainty, and there's people talking about they're going to be fighting for belts next and this. Like, you have no idea if you're going to be fighting for a belt next. Khabib might announce his comeback in December of this year, and then no one's fighting for a belt for the next 2. You know what I mean? So I think people need to calm down with all this belt talk until we figure out what's going on with Khabib, because if McGregor beats Poirier and calls him out, why would Khabib still be under USADA testing? That's something that needs to be mentioned in this video as well. Why would Khabib Nurmagomedov, a man who is so adamant that he has retired from the sport of MMA and is never coming back, say that he's in the USADA testing pool? Or not even say that, he's just in it. He's taking USADA tests. There is no reason to do that if you're not going to come back to the UFC anytime soon. Why are you sticking needles in your arms when you don't have to? And getting blood tested by some random people showing up to your house whenever, in some inconvenient moments, I'm sure, because I'm sure they test Khabib a lot, like they do with every other champion of the UFC. Why is he still going through all of that if he's not going to have a comeback bout? It could be Gaethje versus Nate Diaz. And if it is that, I think Gaethje would win. If it's Oliveira versus Nate Diaz, I think Oliveira would win. If it's Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz, I think Tony Ferguson would win. If it's Paul Felder versus Nate Diaz, I think it's Paul Felder that's going to win. If it's Iaquinta or Kevin Lee, and Nate Diaz gets 5 rounds, those are really good matchups for him. So I think it might be one of those two. I'm going to call my bets right now on the fact that it's Iaquinta, because Iaquinta's been raring to get back in there, according to Paul Felder himself. And Kevin Lee is injured and has only just started training again. And I don't think they're going to chuck him right back in there with Nate Diaz. I think we're going to go with Iaquinta as my final guess. The Brooklyn gangster. The promo is all there. If Nate Diaz can finish him, it will then look like he's done better than Khabib did. And Khabib took him 5 rounds. So maybe that's where Nate Diaz is looking at things. If I can finish Iaquinta, Khabib couldn't do that, I'm going to look really good. Rafael dos Anjos is a possible outcome as well, so I think it's either one of those two names, Rafael dos Anjos or Iaquinta. I don't think it's Gaethje, man. Would they disrespect everyone else at lightweight by doing that? They might do. They made a fucking shitty belt out of him, so they might do. That would really piss me off if they did that, I'll be honest with you guys. I think it's Iaquinta or RDA, and I think it's Iaquinta, because it's winnable. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. I want to see Nate Diaz at 55 again. See if he's still got it, because he looked really good against Michael Johnson. And in his 2 fights with McGregor, he looked really good as well. Hopefully we can get him back to that. Even though the 2 fights with McGregor were not at 155, it seems like he's bulked up a bit between the McGregor fights in his Pettis one and in his other one against Jorge Masvidal. He tried to build himself into a welterweight. I need to see a skinny, lean, mean Nate Diaz, jab, cross machine, and the lightweight division. I think he's going to have a good chance down there. And plus, he has that win over McGregor that still stands. Even though he lost a rematch to McGregor, that's going to help him out with some negotiating power to jump straight up the division if he does win his debut back in there. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. And again, sorry every other lightweight, you're going to have to wait now because stars are around. And it sucks. Because Dariush, if he beats Ferreira, is going to want a top 5 guy, and he's not going to get one. And Makhachev might not... No, Makhachev's fighting Dober. I need to calm down. I'm just excited about a Diaz brother returning, because for a while over the past couple of months, I was under the assumption that neither of the Diaz brothers were going to be returning. I thought maybe Nick would, but now that seems to be fizzling out a little bit, and Dana White said he didn't even want to see Nick Diaz back in the cage ever again, and it's just like, are we ever going to see a Diaz brother compete? It seems like we might, and I think it's Iaquinta, the real Brooklyn gangster brother. Goodbye. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip.